All right, welcome to Hagiasmos' channel, and my name is Travis, and we are going to discuss in this first video the context of spiritual formation, and more importantly, how spiritual formation is going to work in a digital context. But there's a lot of things that we're going to be kind of looking at and covering in this first video, so let's get right into it and kind of explore what this is going to be about. All right, so the first thing is we want to actually define what hagiasmos is and why this channel is called that Greek word hagiasmos. Perhaps for some of you, you maybe not have heard that word or read it before, or you're not familiar with it. But basically the definition means sanctification, holiness, or consecration. It's the closest word that we can find in the Greek New Testament that relates to the idea of spiritual formation or being formed into the image of Christ. So therefore, this channel and my blog is called Hagiasmos. But what exactly is spiritual formation? Now, believe it or not, there is a lot of definitions out there for what spiritual formation is. There's a lot of different concepts, a lot of different authors have discussed what it means, but for the sake of this channel and what we're going to be discussing here, we're going to define spiritual formation as this. Spiritual formation is the process of becoming transformed both inwardly and outwardly to allow Christ to flow from you in all that you do. So how does this work in a digital context? Like I said, this channel is devoted to the concept and the idea of spiritual formation in a digital landscape. So the question kind of comes up, can this be done in a digital way? Well, I believe that it can be done. Truly, digital spiritual formation is no different than traditional or in-person spiritual formation. One reason why I believe that this can be done, and one reason that I will show you that this can be done on this channel, is the idea of adult learning theory. Adult learning theory has been used by researchers and professional educators and higher education professionals for many years, and has demonstrated that distance learning or online learning can be effective and can take place in online formats or online classrooms. Now, there has been other research done, and specifically one researcher by the name of Christopher Beard has shown the connections between adult learning theory and spiritual formation. In one of his research articles, he gives some great quotes and some great connections on how these actually work together and how it proves that digital spiritual formation can happen. He says one quote, and I'll read this. The holistic view of formation and the focus on identity and missional discipleship is consistent with the philosophy of adult education, concerned with the development of the entire person, rather than just the transmission of information. So this researcher here is saying that adult learning theory connected to spiritual formation is not just about reading and understanding information, but it's actually about transformation. And that's exactly what spiritual formation is. It is transformation. He says, while the cognitive aspect of knowledge is still considered a priority to learn biblical content, the goal is not a transfer of biblical knowledge alone, but knowledge that emerges as biblical reality lived out and experienced. So I'm going to show you on these channels, or I'm sorry, on these videos, in future videos, how this works and what this looks like in a digital context. And finally, here's another quote from Christopher Beard discussing spiritual formation and the connection between adult learning theory. He says this, therefore, experience in spiritual formation includes creating intentional experiences and practices for growth, reflection, and formation. So therefore, that's what this channel is about. It is going to show you, the user, how to set up a digital environment where spiritual formation can happen and where the participants can actually experience growth, experience options and opportunity for reflection, and experience options for or opportunities for formation, not just with themselves, but with other people who they are being spiritually formed together with. And we'll talk about this in greater detail in other videos. So can this work? Well, I believe that it can work, and I'm going to show you it can work. But before that, let me just give you an example of how we kind of take for granted of how spiritual formation can happen at a distance or maybe not in person. So, for example, picture yourself in first century Rome. You are a Christian and you are a believer and you're among other Christian believers and you're in a house. And out of nowhere, one day, someone shows up with a letter. And this letter is written by a man named Paul that you've never met. And it's delivered by somebody who you've never met. But this person reads the letter in your presence along with the other believers that have gathered around with you. They don't even just read it once, they read it over and over again. And before you know it, day after day, you come back and you hear this letter being read to you time and time again. And sure enough, practices, theology, and doctrine began to be formed from this letter being read to you from a person that you had never met before, from a person that you don't even know and that you haven't met in person physically. It's the example of how the epistles started in the first century, and it's an example of how distance education works and how distance learning can work. And I believe it's proof that shows digital spiritual formation can happen and can work in a digital environment. And my job is to show you how to do that and to show you throughout the videos on this channel of what that looks like. So stay tuned to this channel. If you haven't done so, please subscribe. And there's going to be more content and more videos coming out that are going to show you how to do this, walking you through step by step using the tools and how to set up a digital environment where you can facilitate spiritual formation. Have a great day.